for those of you who have a computer, what is it? On YouTube, type in Awakening Remnant Coalition with a K, and you'll be able to see the last two lessons on YouTube. And last week, Chris gave the lesson. It was pretty good. In fact, this is what's left over. So, in case you missed the class, you can catch up on it by watching YouTube. Now, today we're going to do Joshua 23 and 24, which is separated by different chapters. No logical reason. If Darrell was grading the person who set these up, he would put a red mark because you're basically taking one complete theme and separating it into two chapters. And that's one of the clues to reading the Bible. What was that you said, McGill? That you see the word therefore?
Therefore, yeah.
At the beginning of a verse, you know that the person cut a logical train of thought in half.
Mm-hmm.
So go back and read. You got to go back and read the previous verse. Anyway, this is one. It has one of my most favorite phrases in the Bible. When we get to that, I like to spend some time on it.
What, the most important thing in life is to get an education?
Yeah, I remember that. When I first heard that, I said, this is from a minister. That's what's so bad. He's dying.
Oh, no.
And his daughter, he's trying to give his daughter the important advice. And he tells her the most important thing in the world is to get a good education. I said, this is from a minister? But that's Christianity for you.
Right.
What's wrong with that phrase?
That's the most important thing in the world to you?
Get right with God.
Would you rather your child have a PhD or they be saved?
Yeah.
Most people who have a PhD don't look to get saved.
I don't. Would you rather that your
I
child...
was wondering what y'all sky. Hey!
No, this is...
I just wondering what y'all take.
I ain't jumping on you. I ain't jumping on you. All I'm saying is just to sharpen what's going on.
I understand.
This is a minister who I mean, if I was dying, the last thing I tell my daughter is the most important thing in the world is to be right with Yahweh.
Yes. As we're going to see.
Now, so we're going to finish this up, and then when we finish Joshua, we're going into Judges, and I've asked Darrell to do a historical perspective on Judges in terms of what was going on all over the world, not all over the world, all over the Middle East, who the Philistines are, where they came from, all that kind of stuff. So that's what we're going to have next week. Make sure you make it, because as we're going through Judges, we need this historical perspective. Now, one of the things that about Judges is Judges do more than any other section of the Bible itself to explain postmodernism, because that's the essence of what Judges is all about. Historical perspective. When Israel gets into this postmodern framework, that your truth is not the same thing as my truth. When you said somebody saying your truth or what's true to me or what's true to you, that's the essence of postmodernism. Because there's only one truth.
Right.
There's not, Benoit has a truth, I have a truth, Miguel has a truth. It's one truth.
Right.
So keep your eyes open to any type of statement that comes out of a person's mouth that says my truth or your truth. And Judges, the phrase is summed up in everybody does what's right according to their own eyes. Now, speaking of the truth, Let's start with Joshua 23. Someone want to open us up in prayer?
I'll open up in prayer, and I like to start reading. I really missed the class, so
Oh, okay.
I want to get back in the groove.
Yeah. That's groove Shabbat.
Let us pray. Hear Israel, Yahuwah is your Elohim. Yahuwah, your Elohim is one. Love him with all your heart, soul, and mind. Abba Yah, we just want to thank you once again for bringing us back to your word, bringing us back safely, giving us another wonderful Shabbat, and just an opportunity to learn a little bit more, that we may be able to, first of all, put it into our lives, and then exemplify that, because as a Hebrew, we function that way, that we are supposed to show, not say or talk, but show it through our actions. We give you thanks in your holy son's name, Yahushua. Amen.
Amen. Okay, let's see.
Chapter 23.
Yeah, hold on a second now. Let's not, we're not going to read the whole thing first.
Right.
We just want to read and stop at key points. Why don't we go from 1 through 6?
Right. Okay. Yeshua chapter 23. Yeshua's farewell address. A long time after that, when Yahuwah had given Israel rest from all their enemies on every side, and Yeshua had grown old and advanced in years, that Yeshua called all Israel, their elders and their heads and their judges and their officers, and said to them, I am old and advanced in years. And you have seen all of Yahuwah your Elohim has done to all these nations for your sake. For Yahuwah your Elohim is he who has been fighting for you. See, I have allotted to you these nations that remain as an inheritance for your tribes, and with all the nations which I have cut off from the Jordan and the great sea towards the setting sun. Yahuwah your Elohim will push them away from before you and drive them out of your sight, and will take possession of their land, just as Yahuwah your Elohim promised you. Be steadfast and very determined to keep and to do everything that is written in the book of the law of Moshe, so that you do not turn aside it to the right or to the left.
Turn aside from the right or the left. Anybody recall these phrases before?
Yeah.
That's what Moses said.
And isn't Joshua just reiterating what Moses has taught?
Mm-hmm.
Does he change anything that Moses has taught?
Mm-hmm.
Notice a recurring phrase he uses. Yahweh, your Elohim, has done this for you. He has allotted to you these nations. And he has pushed them away and driven them from your sight. And that you will take possession of the land. In other words, this is showing and giving all credit to Yahweh or Jehovah. Well, what did the people do? What did the tribes do? Did they have any responsibility? Can anybody give me their thoughts on what the responsibility of the tribes were?
Their job was to keep the law, to keep the Torah. That was their only responsibility. Yah would do all the rest. He would make a way for them if they followed him.
Right.
But they're also they were required to act and not just rely on promises. They were told to go into and to drive them out, and if they did according to the God's purposes, that He would bless their endeavors. But they didn't follow it all the way. They didn't chase everybody out of the land. They didn't kill everybody they were supposed to kill. They allowed the inhabitants to remain and dwelt among them.
But boil that down a little. They were
selected.
We have the word, and then we have acts. And there was a pattern that we see through Judges. There is a failure both ways, and it's tied up in this term of don't go to the right or the left. What's the duality? Anybody see the duality of a recurring pattern? And we especially see it when we start going through Judges. And we see it today.
That they kept turning to the right and left.
And, right, they would turn to the right and left, but how would they do that? What would they do?
Worship other gods, disobey Yah's command, kill prophets.
That's specific. In general, trying to get a general phrase.
They started following their own heart.
They follow their own heart, or they want.
In their own eyes, do what was right in their own
That's
eyes.
the same thing. They do it, or they won't do anything. Remember? The Gibeons, right? They wound up setting up a treaty with people they weren't supposed to. What did they fail to do?
Driving
No.
Insult.
Even before driving them out. When they went up,
they failed to consult Yahweh first, right?
yeah, right. They failed to consult Yahweh first. See, we're supposed to bounce off the word, but instead we have either a tendency to act without consulting the word, without consulting Torah, or we have a tendency to do nothing. Dan is a good example. We studied that. Well, Dan is a perfect picture. Yahweh gives them a certain amount of land because he made that decision because it was about a lot. What did they do?
They wanted more.
Different, actually. This is too hard. So they go up north and wipe out another tribe and take their land. A tribe that Yahweh hadn't even mentioned. And remember, we traced that through. That's one of the reasons it appears why Dan is not a part of the 144,000. I take it that when it says neither go to the right nor the left, it's similar to the same warning against adding to or subtracting.
Yes.
Is our actions should be based on Torah in general, right? Specifically, in these specific things, when they had a more direct communication with Yahweh than we do, is their actions should be based on the Word. And His Word would be consistent with Torah. In other words, His Word would be, this is how we're going to apply Torah in this specific incident, in this specific place, in this specific arena. And what we're supposed to do is, number one, if we, say, don't know exactly how to apply it, we should consult him first before we run off on our own. And second, and this is worse though, is sometimes he'll tell you, this is what I want you to do. You say, that's a little too hard. You know, we're facing, those people are 12 feet tall. We can't whoop them. And many times we won't tackle a problem because it seems impossible.
A lot of times, Holy Spirit wants you to witness to somebody, and about human nature, we won't do it.
That's true.
We scare up, or we might say, oh, they don't want to hear it, or I'm not talking to that person. And that has happened a lot in this world.
That's true. Well, I've been guilty of that myself.
Yeah, we all have.
Going to the quote New Testament, Yeshua sets up a primary example of what our position should be with in terms of witness. Anybody remember that when he sent the 70 out?
Not to worry about what you're to say because it'll be given to you at that time.
Right, and when you say something and people reject it, what?
Take the dust
Off your feet. But at the same time, you got to witness. But at the same time, don't get hung up in whether or not they're gonna comply with you.
That'll hang you up every time. If they might not give you the time of day.
Right, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't
Right,
witness.
exactly.
But at the same time, don't get hung up in it, because I've heard a lot of people that get hung up in it. You got to realize this. If a person's never heard, quote, the gospel, right, and they die, they still held responsible, so they're going to face a certain punishment in hell. But if you've heard the gospel and you reject it, it's going to be worse for you.
Yep.
So you got to keep this in mind when you witness.
So if you're compelled to, if Yah compels you to go speak to someone,
Mm-hmm.
and you do that, the emphasis is that individual is being granted an opportunity.
Right.
So when judgment comes, I didn't know.
Mm-hmm. Right. But it's not your responsibility.
Yes.
Which is what I see a lot of times, that they accept it.
Yes.
That's a little rabbit trail, but it's similar to the theme that I'm trying to get. This concept of don't go to the right or the left is violated almost every day on a daily basis, and even particularly by us, particularly when we're in the Christian. We have a tendency, because do we? Oh man, there's so many examples of going to the right or the left that we do. That's highlighted as we read, like Joshua, and when we get into Judges. That is one of the things that we have to just be constantly vigilant about. And adding to and subtracting from is another one of the things we have to be constantly vigilant.
All right. I don't want to move on. Can I bring up a point?
Oh, no, by all means.
Out of the first couple of scriptures, it's something that goes on. I know a lot of people can attest to this, especially people of age, is how society tends to kick out what the elderly are saying.
Oh, yeah.
and I'm just saying, in this particular thing, he's old and waxing age.
110 years old, right?
Yeah. So, he's walking in Yah. So a lot of times now, what's going on, like a lot of people don't respect the elders, especially those who's been walking, according to Torah, and they got experience.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody wants to hear what they have to say anymore. They're pushing them off to the side.
Mm-hmm.
So when I see this, it's like, okay, when you have somebody who's walking in Yah elderly, he got all these years, you should be more inclined to hear what they got to say.
That's true. I gotta admit, too, when I was much younger and full of myself, I had a tendency to push the elderly off to the side. But as I get older, and I find myself getting in trouble, getting in a hassle, many times their words will come back to me. I say, well, that's what they meant. But that is true. And the fact that he's old and elderly should be a sign right off the bat that, hey, look, we better listen to this guy. Not only
age should show wisdom. With age, you're supposed to get wisdom.
Right. But look, I live with a bunch of old people. That's not really true.
That's why I'm trying to specifically line up. It's like, I from my personal perspective, I do listen to some elders that may not be walking in Torah only for the fact that I'm learning from the mistakes that they made.
That's exactly what phrase you do.
Yeah.
But Joshua,
he's
only made about 2 mistakes I've seen so far.
That we know of.
Right, we know of. And at 110, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
No.
So one of the emphasis that we find throughout Scripture, we saw like first mentioned, that a lot of times we're hearing throughout the Scriptures people's farewell,
address, right?
You know, so not saying that you neglect their young life and stuff like that, but the emphasis is like, okay, we need to take heed to what they're saying. And the constant theme you hear is like, hey, don't lead to the left, don't lead to the right, you know, and whatever you experience, you young man, you get that money, don't forget Yah. I mean, just it's certain things that they're constantly gearing you to understand that you need to stay focused, and that's why I really love this book.
Me too. Our parents used to have a saying, listen to old folks because where you're going, they've been. And it's like clearing a pathway of, you don't want to make, like you said, the same mistakes they did. And the things that they did where they were successful in, you want to follow their example.
I mean, because, man, I don't, this just hits heavy with me, but, you know, I talk to my kids, and I'm saying, like, and I'm looking at the elders who, you know, walk in Torah in Scripture. With elders, what their lives are able to do, they're able to reflect back. Sometimes when you're 15 years old, you can't think 30. You ain't been there, you know? But when the elder is speaking, it's like they're looking back. They see ahead now because they understand, like, yeah, I walk with Yah, and his promises are definitely for sure. But now, when I'm reflecting back, I'm able to see 15, 16, 17, 18, what I did at 15 when I got to 30, what I didn't listen to when I was 15, and now I'm 30 if I would have listened to when I was 15. So the words is more powerful and impactful if you actually take heed to what's being said.
I think sum it up, what you're saying is that they have a perspective.
Yes.
That the youth doesn't have. This is 110. And even more you want to listen to Joshua is because how long did it take them to conquer the Canaan? Anybody know? How long did this take? I mean, this is not no 1 or 2 year campaign we're looking at. Because I think when he started it, he was about 80 years old. Now he's 110. You're looking at about a 30-year campaign, 20 or 30, 20 at the minimum. But the key thing is he was successful. He's guided, what, maybe 3, 4, 5 million people into taking over an area of land the size of New Jersey, the San Joaquin Valley, with Bronze Age weapons. And many of these people were twice their height.
Yeah, and they had their fortress was bigger. Like everything that they had was a lot more established than what Yah's people had. So it was with Yah directing them and listening, they were able to overcome those obstacles, you would say. You know, which
as long as they stayed within Torah.
Yes.
When they went off on their own, they messed up. And when they neglected based on their own ideas of what should be done, that did something different, they messed up. That applies today in our everyday life.
Yes.
And we can see how our whole culture has, one of the things, going back to what Bernard raised up, is this culture programs you to disrespect older people.
Yes.
Television is the leader in that. And of the different industries, Walt Disney's probably more than anything else. Is when you let your kids sit up there and watch TV all day, they're usually being programmed to disrespect you.
Right. Most Disney movies don't have a father figure.
Right.
And the children are the wisest ones.
And the children are the wisest ones. So that's a good point. Now let's continue on because I want to make sure we get to the.
No rush.
Okay, start at 7.
Want me to continue or someone else?
Someone else. I like to spread the accolades around.
Okay. I haven't been here in a while, so I'll go for it. Verse 7. So that you do not associate with these nations which remain among you, or mention the name of their gods, or make anyone swear or serve them or bow down to them. But you are to cling to Yahuwah your Elohim, just as you have done this day. For Yahuwah has driven out a great and mighty nations from before you, and as for you, no man has been able to stand before you to this day. One of your men puts to flight 1,000, for Yahuwah your Elohim is he who is fighting for you, just as he promised you. So be very careful and watchful of yourselves to love Yahuwah your Elohim. For if you ever turn back and cling to the rest of these nations, these that are left among you, and intermarry with them, so that you associate with them and they with you, know and understand with certainty that Yahuwah your Elohim will not continue to drive these nations out from before you, but they will be a snare and a trap for you, and a whip on your sides and thorns in your eyes, until you perish from this good land which Yahuwah your Elohim has given you. Now behold, today I am going the way of all the earth, and you know in your hearts and in all your souls that not one word of all the good words which Yahuwah your Elohim has promised concerning you has failed. All have been fulfilled for you, not one of them has failed. It shall come about that just as every good word which Yahuwah your Elohim spoke and promised to you has been fulfilled for you, so Yahuwah will bring upon you every bad thing until he has destroyed and eliminated you from this good land which Yahuwah your Elohim has given you. When you transgress the covenant of Yahuwah your Elohim, which he commanded you, and you go and serve other gods and bow down to them, then the anger of Yahuwah will be kindled against you, and you shall perish quickly from the good land which he has given you.
Okay, now that's good. Let's go to verse 11. So be careful and watchful of yourselves to love Yahweh your Elohim. Love. Anybody remember somebody did a word study on love? I think it was Marika. In Hebrew, what is love?
Ahava.
Ahava. And verbal definition, because that's what the Hebrew specializes in. Anybody remember the verbal definition?
I think it means to give. Doesn't it? Ahava has to do with giving. Love, like Yeshua gave his life for us. That's how we know that he loved us, because he gave his life for us.
Right, and that's contrast to the Greco-Roman definition of love, which is
feelings.
It's a feeling. So let's analyze this first. To love Yahweh your Elohim. Can someone express this the way it should be in Hebrew?
Well, in the previous scriptures, he was giving them commandments of what they should be doing. So if you said, well, in Yahshua, even breaking and said, if you love me, you're going to keep my commandments.
Right. Okay.
So the love is the act of following the things that it's carried out in your life. You will see a reflection of that. So when Elohim tell you not to lean to the left, I love him, I'm not leaning to the left. I'm not leaning to the right. I love him. I'm not leaning to the right. I'm going to do what he says.
Right. And I'm not going to add or subtract from what he said.
So the big, sorry.
No, go ahead.
One of the biggest things that happens to our people, and I was talking to, was Yazi back there? I was talking to Yazi. We was talking about this Thursday, assimilation. That's one of the biggest things that affects our people when we assimilate to culture and not to Torah.
Isn't this what Josh is talking about?
Yes.
Exactly.
It's assimilation.
Yes.
It's don't assimilate with the heathen.
Yes.
Right, exactly. No intermarrying.
And we see this carried out, especially throughout our people. We see this carried out. You want to be just like them. We will negate the Torah, and the heathen look like they got it going on. They women look good, their money look good, their prestige look good. This Torah stuff is for the birds. I'm gonna do what they doing.
And there's intellectual snobbery. Right now, what the heathens push more than anything else is Darwinism, right?
Right.
And which is really nothing but a form of paganism. Right. And that they say there's no God, but actually there is a God to them, and that's their human intellect.
Yes.
That's their God. And one of the things that Christianity has done is it has adopted that standard, that we can figure out what's right and wrong. We don't need absolutes. All we can, all we have to do is use human reason. That's why there's all these problems that we can solve if we just get the right person elected. If we just get no, that is.
That's why they voted for Trump, not to a lot of.
And that's why they will vote for Oprah Winfrey.
Or anybody they vote for.
Anybody
so
that they vote for
her, they don't do it.
And that makes me think of what Jeremiah said. Jeremiah said, "Cursed be the man that trusteth in man and maketh flesh his arm, that makes man his strength." And that's exactly what this society pushes. And that's I like this little internet comic where Trump is represented as a golden calf.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
But not to bash Trump or get political. I'm saying any politician.
That's right.
Could have had his face on that. The office of the president as a golden calf.
I didn't see that.
Oh, it's a funny one.
I look for stuff like that, but that's true.
Because like assimilation it's a trap. Because inevitably you're going to lose who you are, and then you're going to become a pawn to the people who you assimilated with.
That is true, and that's exactly what's happened with the Christianity today. It's there's an old expression: you're really supposed to be in the world, but not of the world. Well, actually, the world is in us now. Hi there, Bruce.
Shalom, everyone.
Bruce. Shalom. I just thought of an example that's it'll come to me. But the key thing is assimilation or acculturation. One of the things that is true about human nature and human behavior is that cultures automatically will assimilate traits from other cultures that they associate with. That occurs all the time. And to a certain degree, that's natural. One of the reasons that Rome was able to establish itself as an empire for 1,000 years was they had a conscious program of when they ran up against a group of people and they had a better weapon, or they can fight better, or they had a better strategy, even when Rome lose, they would adopt their strategy. They did that all the time, and it was no bones about it. If you look at the average Roman soldier, their swords came from Spain, their what's the stuff they put
breastplate?
Breastplate came from Greece. The basic formation was a mixture of Etruscan and Greece. And when you look at history, you find out that that's a natural thing for cultures to do, is to adopt from other cultures what they think seems best or what will help them. There's a term for it, cultural acculturation, or not
appropriation.
Appropriation. Well, Yahweh, since he made us, knows that we have a tendency to do this. That's one of the reasons I submit is why he said don't associate with him at all.
Yes.
Right. He didn't say associate with them, but be tough, hang tough, don't adopt their ways.
Right.
He said, don't associate with them at all. That's one of the reasons he used the term drive them out. This is a bigger question, and I don't want you to get into it now, but we'll look into it in Judges. All the way through Joshua's farewell address, he's saying Yahweh has accomplished that. He has driven them out. Okay. But when we get into Judges, and we got to look, and that's why I want Darrell said, if they've driven them out, who are all these people messing over them in Judges? Where'd they come from?
It's themselves. It's themselves.
No, it's different people, because it's mentioned in Judges. The Amorites, the Philistines.
He gave the examples of the scripture of why they will start coming back.
Well, the nature of it, let's do a thought experiment. Let's think that for the way Joshua 23 and 24 indicates that they had driven all the people out of the land. And this is what I want Bernard to look at. Does that mean those people are going to stay out?
No.
They're going to drift back in.
If you allow them.
That was the warning. That was the warning that Yeshua gave the people.
Right. That's his warning.
He was speaking prophetically to them because the commandment had been, it was already done.
Right.
So he was speaking prophetically. Now, he was saying, go take what I've given you. And Joshua got a grip of that, he got a hold of that. And he was telling them, it's done, just go do it. Go take it. But if I don't go take it, the enemy will remain. For instance, Jebusite, Jerusalem. Not until the days of David could they overcome it, could they take it. And that was the land of Benjamin, but Benjamin never took it.
You've lost this.
It goes all together. Joshua was speaking prophetically.
We agree with that, but what I'm saying, but he's also saying over and over again, you've taken it.
Yeah, because you got to go do it.
No, he's done it. He's saying you've done it.
Yah has done it.
You've done what Yah told you to do.
When he releases a word to you, he releases it in the spirit realm. I think you better read this. No, I'm telling you, when he releases a word to us, he releases it in the spirit realm. Now we have to bring it into manifestation.
Let's get back to the text if we can.
That's where I am. I'm not away from your text.
No, you're not. You read what the text says.
Well addressed.
The word was, he has done it.
We're dealing
it's just like the seat. He just gave me the seat.
Okay,
but I didn't move into the seat. But he gave me the seat.
Let's read the text, please.
Yes.
Let's please read the text. 23 and 24. Please read the text.
Okay. I'm saying what the text says.
Well, you might have a photographic memory, but I don't. I like to work off the text.
The warning, again, like you said about Joshua, about the Canaanites being, and all those other people coming back after Yah has, allowed for Joshua to drive the nations out. He gives the warning that what's going to occur in 23:15-16.
Right.
We just read that.
Right.
It said that everything that Yah said has come to fruition, and none of the things he said has failed.
Right.
But.
Right.
It says, if 23:15, just read it again. Therefore it shall come to pass that as all good things are come upon you, which Yahuwah your Elohim promised you, so shall Yahuwah bring upon you all evil things, until he have destroyed you from off the good land which Yahuwah your Elohim have given you. When ye have transgressed the covenant of Yah your Elohim, which he have commanded you, and have gone and served other mighty ones, and bowed yourself to them, then shall the anger of Yahuwah be kindled against you, and ye shall perish quickly off the good land which he hath given unto you.
And this is the prophetic, Anthony. This is we agree with you there. This is prophecy. And he's making a prophetic statement. And he's also, even though the land's clear, hey, they will be back. They're like Clint Eastwood. Not Clint Eastwood. Arnold Schwarzenegger.
They hadn't been cleared out of the land. We
What?
have to understand that.
No.
Y'all
Okay.
speaks a
Okay.
word.
We got a disagreement here. Okay.
Okay,
Let's
but
not.
let me
No.
say what I'm
Let's
saying.
not hang up on it because I'm
not.
going by what the text says.
Okay, we have to understand what the text is saying. He's speaking a prophetic word.
Right.
Okay. It is not in manifestation. The word is spoken. It's not in
Right.
manifestation.
We just read it. He just said.
We've been going through the book of Joshua line by line, so we done seen Joshua drive out the people already. We saw the allotment of land.
The allotment, you have the allotment of land, but you don't have possession.
You know, we've read it. We've been doing it for all
Anybody
Shabbats.
got that
Okay, I
thing
won't say
that
that.
Chris handed out last week?
I won't say it anymore.
I got it in my
He handed it out last week.
I got it in my car. I can go
Okay,
get it.
no, we are. But if you remember, he's showing the allotment.
This is
I understand all of that.
Okay.
Trust me, I understand all that.
But let's put it this
Those maps
way:
aren't correct.
you're
Those
dealing
maps
with you're dealing with Bible Studies 301. Let's stick to 101. You know?
That's why I have that one. I wasn't going over your head. You're just not hearing what I'm saying.
No, I hear what you're saying. I'm saying we're not following the text. Let's follow what the text says. Okay? According to the text says, read it again, because we want to get it down tight.
Therefore it shall come to pass that as all good things are come upon you, which Yahuwah your Elohim promised you, so shall Yahuwah bring upon all evil things until he have destroyed you from off this good land which Yahuwah your Elohim have given you.
Has given you.
Uh-huh.
That's the key phrase that we want to use.
Uh-huh.
He's given it to you.
He gave it to you before you went into it. He gave it to him back in the days of
Okay.
Abram.
Let's keep going though.
That's
We
when it
want
was
to finish
given.
this up.
If you're doing scripture, that's when it was given. Back in the days of Abram.
that's what was promised.
It was
given
promised.
then.
Promised
He said he
and
gave
given. Now he's
They
given
didn't
it to
have
you.
possession.
Okay, let's
But
go
it was
on to
given.
let's go on to
You understand?
24.
So there's a big.
I'm sorry, but I can't let the class get hung up over semantics like this. My thing is, we read the word, we analyze the word that's in front of us. All right.
Yeah. What you want, Elvoyce? 24, how many verses?
24, 1 through 15.
All right. And Joshua gathered all the tribes of Israel to Shechem, and called for the elders of Israel, and for their heads, and for their judges, and for their officers, and they presented themselves before Elohim. And Joshua said unto all the people, Thus said Yahuwah Elohim of Israel, Your fathers dwelt on the other side of the flood in old time, even Terah the father of Abraham, and the father of Nachor, and they served other mighty ones. And I took your father Abraham from the other side of the flood, and led him throughout all the land of Canaan, and multiplied his seed, and gave him Isaac. And I said unto Isaac, Jacob, and Esau, I have gave unto Esau Mount Seir to possess it, but Jacob and his children went down to Egypt. I sent Moshe also and Aaron, and I plagued Egypt, according to that which I did among them, and afterward I brought you out. And I brought your fathers out of Egypt, and ye came unto the sea. And the Egyptians pursued after your fathers with chariots and horsemen unto the Red Sea. And when they cried unto Yahuwah, he put darkness between you and the Egyptians, and brought the sea upon them, and covered them. And your eyes have seen what I have done in Egypt. And ye dwelt in the wilderness a long season. And I brought you into the land of the Amorites, which dwelt on the other side of Jordan. And they fought with you. And I gave them into your hand, that ye might possess their land. And I destroyed them from before you. Then Balak, the son of Zippor, the king of Moab, rose and warred against Israel, and sent and called Balaam, the son of Beor, to curse you. But I would not hearken unto Balaam. Therefore he blessed you still. So I delivered you out of his hand. And when you went over Jordan, and came unto Jericho, and the men of Jericho fought against you, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Girgazites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites, and I delivered them into your hand. And I sent the hornet before you, which drave them out from before you, even the two kings of the Amorites. but not with thy sword, nor with thy bow. I have given you a land for which ye did not labor, and cities which ye built not, and ye dwelt in them, of the vineyards and olive yards which ye planted, not do ye eat. Now therefore fear Yahuwah, and serve him in sincerity and in truth, and put away the mighty ones which your fathers served on the other side of the flood, and in Egypt, and serve ye Yahweh. And if it seem evil unto you to serve Yahuwah, choose you this day whom you will serve, which the mighty ones which your fathers served that were on the other side of the flood, or the mighty ones of the Amorites in whose land ye dwell. But as for me and my bet, I will serve Yahuwah.
All right. That's a phrase I love. I like to paraphrase it a bit. I don't give a damn who you serve.
That's
but
right.
as far as me and my house, we gonna serve Yahweh or Jehovah.
Amen, amen.
And notice that before he comes to this conclusion, and before he puts the challenge to her, he goes through a complete history
That's right.
of the establishment of Israel as a nation. He don't just start with Abraham, he starts with Abraham's father. Saying what condition he was in. His father worshipped idols.
Yeah.
And you're going to find this history is repeated quite a few times going through the Bible. And poor Stephen, when he's stoned to death, he gives one of the most complete summary of their whole history. And when the people hear this, when the Sanhedrin hear this, they get so mad they stone him. And all he's doing is completing their history. That's going to find you one of the things that's present in our culture. Our culture hates history. One of the shocking things I found when I was raising my kids is when they watered down the requirement of history that they take. It's nothing like the history I had to take. Now, I picked up a bunch of lies in history, but at least I had a framework to understand something of the historical perspective. I don't know, nobody in here is as old as I am, except maybe Neville and Bruce, but I don't know what your guys' experience was, but when I went through my kids' history books, I said, man, they've wiped out half the stuff in the history books. But it's something that I seem to notice is that this culture hates to deal with history. And one of the things the Bible does over and over again is this stress over and over again. You got to know your history.
That's a good point, Elvoyce. I never really thought about that one too, because we're talking about how we're seeing Yah's judgment being placed upon this world, and that's probably another judgment too. I'm serious, like it's another judgment that if we're eradicating the thought of you understanding what your past was of history, we don't want you to think like that anymore. What we see emphasis that Yah, that's how he dealt with things. He wanted you to remember.
Right. And not get stuck.
You know what was actually cold too? That once we got away from Yah and we turned to the left and to the right hand, he took that history from us, because see, it's important to him that we know who we are and that we establish ourselves in his culture. You know what I'm saying? That's important to Yah. And he knew it, so he took it from us as a result of our disobedience. So we didn't even know who we were for thousands of years, and just now waking up to.
No, I know who we are. We're slaves. Yeah. We're descended from slaves. That's all I learned.
That's all.
Right. That's as far as it went.
that's all I learned.
But that was one of the curses in Deuteronomy.
Right.
He said we would not remember.
Exactly.
That's true. That's very
so
important.
Our history is important, because if you don't know who you are, you don't know where you're going. See what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that we know who we are, we can say, okay, we can repair the breaches now, well, you know, because our culture was dismantled, but we can put it back together because we know who we are. But if we
Who
didn't know
dismantled our culture?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Y'all did it.
But what instrument did he use for us to?
The other, yeah, say it again.
The other nations?
No, wait, think about it. Who's responsible for us getting in this mess? And this takes us back to how we started.
Us.
This takes us back to us.
The agreement that said we will do everything. We had the verbal agreement.
Our ancestors.
So just wanted to read the judgment about us losing our history in Jeremiah 17:4. And thou, even thyself, shall discontinue from thine heritage that I gave thee, and I will cause thee to serve thine enemies in the land which thou knowest not, for ye have kindled a fire in mine anger which shall burn forever.
Right, that's perfect, right on point.
And going back to, like you said, the cyclical nature of the Hebrew, we were just talking to me and you about Ezra.
Yeah.
And we found the scrolls and read, and they start repairing things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so the moment we get away from Yah, the same things occur. You start
Over and over
taking,
again.
pulling, destroying, scattering.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
That's true, because blessings and curses are both cyclical. One of the things, and that's sort of a hard concept, and it's hard for me to put it forth, but there is, I wouldn't call it a partnership, but there's a relationship going on between Yahweh and us. Bruce, you with us?
Yeah, I'm listening to you.
Okay. No, I'm not. Marvin does this
I'm
to me all
listening
the
today.
time.
I'm not jumping in. Is that what's bothering you?
Pulling an Elvoyce. Wake him up.
Now Marvin does that to me all the time. But there's this balance between us and Yahweh, and that's what we were sort of talking about, Anthony. He tells us he's going to do this, he's going to do this, he's going to do this. But a part of that balance is you have to respond, you have to do it, you have to agree to it, you have to do exactly what he tells you to do.
Yes.
If it can either be a blessing, like giving you a whole nation, giving you cities that you didn't build, you know, an infrastructure that you didn't develop, and all of that. Same thing operates in curses. If you don't do this, this is going to happen.
It's reversed.
Right, it's reversed. And so if you don't remember your history, and if you violate the words I've given you, or you add to the words, or you take away from the words, or you go to the right, or you go to the left, this is going to happen. Now, to a certain extent, I can ascertain two different things that happen. Many of them are just the natural consequences of you violating his word. In other words, he doesn't have to do something miracle. He's not like Zeus sitting up there with a lightning bolt. Oh, you violate the rules. Bang. You know?
Right.
He's already said it.
He's already said, this is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I don't have to do anything. This is the natural consequences of you breaking the rules.
I'm paraphrasing, but churches use this all the time to get financial gain. But it said from the beginning, seed time and harvest. You know, it's already been established already. You know, so those curses and the blessings are already established. It's like his word is not coming back void. Whatever he's already established is already established. In order for us to get out of the conditions, it's already established how we're going to get out of it.
Right. And like our history, right? We just went through this. He's very careful before he reached the conclusion to outline their history, right? And the idea is, if you recall your history, you're going to come to the right conclusion. If you don't recall your history, he doesn't have to throw the lightning bolts. You're just going to come to the wrong conclusion. You're going to lose your history, not people take it away from you. Because you didn't remember it. Look, long before we had history books, we had a tradition in human nature called oral tradition.
Right.
how do you think Moses was able to, because this is where he got it from, Moses, recall their history from Haran right on up until the time they're in Egypt. Did he consult
Give me that tablet.
The,
the tablets,
Yeah.
you know?
Let me go back to the tablets.
No, did he consult Gutenberg Press and read the Bible?
No.
He wrote the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you think he got the information to write the Bible from?
Yeah. Yeah,
Right, but how did
face.
it pass?
Oral.
Right.
Oral.
Oral.
Spoken.
Right. He started off with Adam and Eve. How did he know about Adam and Eve?
Y'all had to tell him on the
Y'all
phone.
told him that.
Huh?
See, a lot
But
of
how did he tell them?
Spoke.
Face to face.
Spoke to him. Oral.
No.
What?
He was with Jethro.
All right, let's wind this back.
You ever heard of oral tradition?
Yeah, that's what we said. Yeah.
Okay.
That's what we said. Yeah.
But who in the world told? Okay. Adam and Eve, when they raised their kids, they told them what happened in the Garden of Eden,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then their kids in turn told their kids, and their kids in turn told their kids.
And I just want to give a clear example of this tradition of oral storytelling. We know from the Tower of Babel that all the races of men were scattered, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know that there are 300 tales of a cataclysmic world flood that exists across all cultures? That's a clear anthropological example of this oral tradition of storytelling. They all have the story of the Great Flood. Why? Because that story was passed down through oral tradition. In the scattering at Babel, that story scattered with them. Hawaiians have it. The Chinese have it.
Yeah.
The Arabs have it. Everyone has it.
It's in their language, it's Chinese, but just to go to, and just to go to the whole Bereshit of all, the whole oral tradition, Yahuwah spoke directly
Yeah, no,
to Moshe.
I know. Well, that's true. But he spoke to Moshe, but Moshe spoke to John. And what's called,
Yes,
the thing is the written language that we have nowadays is great, right? It actually takes away an excuse. But even without the written language, we have all human beings have the capability of passing on knowledge from one generation to another generation by oral statements. When you raise your kids, you need to tell them the story of your family life.
Exactly.
You need to tell them, not just tell them to go read a book.
Yes. That's the dangers of postmodernism.
Right.
Because parents get off into themselves, neglect telling the kids because they all about themselves.
Right.
And
That's
y'all
right.
Not to do that.
Not to-
Y'all
yes.
said, teach them to your kids
Yes.
and your sons and your sons. So that's
Over
true.
and over
Violation
again.
of
The
Torah.
Shema.
Gris gave a presentation last week, right? They almost had a civil war.
Oh
Because
yeah,
they
that's
thought they
right.
was building another altar, duplicating Shiloh. And when they got there and talked to him, thank God, thank Yahweh, they went and talked before they started the war. They said simply, hey, no, this is a reminder. We put this up for our kids. So that when they ask what this is for, we can tell them. See, the first responsibility to us as parents is not to send our kids to school. Send them to school, but the first responsibility is you sit down and talk to them one-on-one. At night, you tell them stories. Sitting around dinner, you tell them stories. And you start, like in terms of history, what one of my history professors told me. Your history starts with you. It starts with you telling your children the history of their family. If you don't tell them that, they go off to school, they can be taught anything. One of the things I remember growing up more than anything else is that's back in the days when the whole family would sit around to dinner, is listening to stories that my grandfather, grandmother, Grand Aunt would tell about their life as they were growing up and the stuff they had to deal with. Now, my family had, when they talked, they had to fight the Ku Klux Klan. It wasn't something that you read in the history books. They would tell you the incident where they call together a meeting, everybody get around with their guns and have a lookout, waiting to see if the Ku Klux Klan was going to show up. That is the essence is what I think we can pick up from Joshua, is what he said. Before he tells them, before you reach a conclusion as to which God you're going to serve, let me tell you what he has done for us. And he goes through step by step their history. And then at the conclusion, that based on this, based on all of the things I have outlined, and that you know too, because, hey, the oral tradition was there. Joshua wasn't sitting around with the elders with a Bible, going through the Bible. The elders knew all of this, and because they didn't have Bibles. Everybody wasn't floating around with a Bible then. They knew it based on oral tradition. Now, I see that Bernard has left, which means he's checking on other class. So let's finish up. Somebody read from 16 to 28.
The people answered, "Far be it from us to abandon or reject Yahuwah, to serve other gods. For Yahweh our Elohim is he who brought us and our fathers up out of the land of Egypt from the house of bondage, and who did these great signs, these miracles in our sight, and kept us safe all along the way that we went, and among all the people whom we passed. Yahweh drove all the peoples out from before us, even the Amorites who lived in the land. We also will serve Yahuwah, for he is our Elohim." Then Joshua said to the people, "You will not be able to serve Yahuwah if you serve any other gods, for he is a holy Elohim. He is a jealous Elohim, demanding what is rightfully and uniquely his. He will not forgive your transgressions of his law for your sins. If you do abandon, reject Yahuwah, and serve foreign gods, then he will turn and do you harm, and consume and destroy you after he has done you good." Then the people said to Joshua, "No, but we will serve Yahweh or Yahuwah." Oh yeah.
22.
Yeah. Then Joshua said to the people, "You are witness against yourselves that you have chosen for yourselves Yahweh to serve him." All right. We are witnesses. Now then.
Hallelujah.
This reminds me, remember what was it, Elby? When Moses made a similar address?
Yeah.
It says, and what did they agreed?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
In Exodus 19.
Mm-hmm. Now, see, I think that's different than us and other nations, so to speak. When I say us, I mean people have accepted a Hebrewic view. All people will suffer the same fate if they don't comply with the law.
Mm-hmm.
But we suffer it worse because, see, we agreed to it.
Mm-hmm.
Other people haven't agreed to it, but you live in a culture, say in a foreign land, and you go around sleeping in other people's wives, sooner or later you're going to get killed, right? You suffer the consequences of violating one of the 10 Commandments. But
I was talking about the words, repeating the words, and so on and so forth. So I was wanted to read Davarim, Deuteronomy 6, verses 6. Well, verses 6. And it says, "And these words which I command you this day shall be in your heart, And you shall teach them diligently unto your children, and shall talk of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up. And you shall bind them for a sign upon your hand, and they shall be as a frontlets between your eyes, and you shall write them upon the posts of your house and your gates. Therefore, going back to the point of, it's repetitive. The way that this happened is because they repeated it
over and over
again.
Now, Dal correct me, but nowadays in education, teachers are against repetitive teaching, right? I mean, even when I was a kid, they preached that there was this concept, oh, you don't want to rote learn. You want to, it comes from within you. You know, you develop we want to teach kids to think, not to automatically learn something.
Because when I was growing up, and I tried to do this with my kids, and it was like a shift that was a fight. When I was growing up, we had to write repetitive sentence,
right?
5 times each, you know, 5 times each alphabetical order, you know. And I'm like, do this. I'm like, oh man, like it's a battle.
Right. It's a battle against ignorance.
Yeah.
And lack of knowledge. So, but that's something that's stressed over and over again in the Bible. Number one, the responsibility is us to teach. Start orally. Don't just hand your kids a book. Don't just hand them a book, but that's not what you just do. That doesn't fulfill your responsibility. Is to sit down and actually orally transmit your history, our history, to them. What did we end? I think I interrupted something.
23.
Oh, you're witnesses against yourselves. Go ahead. Somebody continue on.
What was that? 23?
Mm-hmm.
Now then, remove the foreign gods which are among you, and incline your hearts toward Yahweh, the Elohim of Israel. The people said to Joshua, we will serve Yahweh our Elohim, and we will listen to and obey his voice. So Joshua made a covenant with the people that day, and made them a statute and an ordinance at Shechem. And Joshua wrote these words in the book of the law of Elohim. Then he took a large stone and he set it up under the oak that was in the courtyard of the sanctuary of Yahweh, and set it up in the court. So 27, Joshua then said to all the people, look, this stone shall serve as a witness against us, for it has heard all the words which Yahweh spoke unto us. So it shall be a witness against you, so that afterwards you do not deny your Elohim. Then Joshua sent the people away, each to their territory of his inheritance.
Okay, so once again, we get this phrase, we get this concept, you know, that the Israelites heard the law and agreed to it. They've agreed to say, we will accept the consequences. That's why the essence of when we look at the mess we're in, it's our fault.
Right.
We've got to remember that. It is our fault. That's one of the things. I was in the Black Power movement, but one of the things I used to hate about the Black Power movement is every time there was something wrong in the black community, it's the white man.
Right, right.
It was the white man. So 2 blacks get into a gunfight, one shoots the other one. Some kind of way, it's the fault of the white man.
We didn't bring the guns in here. We didn't make the bullets.
Or we fill ourselves with cocaine. Some kind of way, it's the fault of the white man.
Ships. We didn't make it.
Oh yeah, that's exactly what they used to say.
I used to say it.
But it's just, we see this twice here, is we agree. We are witnesses. We are witnesses against ourselves, huh?
And I just wanted to point out, because Joshua took the office of Moses in Deuteronomy 31 and 28, Moses said, gather unto me all the elders of your tribes and your officers, that I may speak these words in their ears and call heaven and earth to record against them. So when Joshua put that big stone there, Moses called all of heaven and earth to record against us before he delivered the Song of Moses. So you see how Joshua is echoing the actions of Moses.
Right.
All of the prophets echoed Moses.
Moses' actions. And let's put it this way too. Let's pull this little gem out of it. Since the population here is Israel should have been about maybe 3, 4, maybe 5 million people at this time. Joshua is not addressing the whole nation. He can't. Now Moses came close because of the natural acoustics of the area he was in. But here it says he's addressing the elders, the heads of the clans. Whose responsibility after they've heard Joshua? What is their responsibility when they get back to their?
Let me know.
Get it back to the people.
Let me know.
Exactly.
To let me know.
What was said?
What was said? Let me know.
Who's the me? Who's the me?
Me.
Who's the me?
The me is Israel.
Right. The me is their people.
Yeah.
You know, you put up. You heard Joshua. You come back to your people.
What did he say?
It's your responsibility to then talk to them. How did you do it? Did you distribute them a little handout like me? No. What?
I said it was oral.
It was oral.
Yeah. You know what else was funny?
That's what we've
5 more minutes,
lost.
guys. 5 more minutes.
We've lost that oral. To a certain extent, that's what we're doing here when we get together. We're doing the oral bit. But we use this. Remember, this is only a this is only a handout. This is only a helper.
Right.
Yes.
The key thing is that we all speak. We all pass on our knowledge. Orally.
You know what else is interesting? That during the time when they had the tabernacle, the Levites were chosen, the elders of the families. The eldest son of the family was to go to the temple and serve with the Levites.
Right.
And then they would take whatever they learned at the tabernacle to their families and teach them that same thing. So oral tradition, even back during the time of the tabernacle days.
That's right, and that's what I'm trying to get us to get in this lesson. Is oral traditions is very, very important. We've kicked it to the curb in a way, but we got to, what's a good word? Revitalize it, or there's another word.
Make it come back.
Revive it.
Make it come
restore
back.
it.
Restore it.
Restore it.
I like that. Restore it.
We've got to restore it,
Reintroduce.
starting with our family.
Yes.
Okay, let's finish up because the superintendent has given us a time limit. 29 to 33.
I got a stone for you.
Miguel, you might as well finish.
Okay, it happened after these things that Joshua the son of Nun, the servant of Yahuwah, died at the age of 110 years.
Wow.
They buried him in the territory of his inheritance in Timnath Serah, which is in the hill country of Ephraim on the north side of Mount Gash. Israel served Yahuwah all the days of Joshua and all the days of the elders who outlived Joshua, and had known all the works of Yahuwah which he had done for Israel. Now the buried bones of Joseph, which the children of Israel brought up from Egypt at Shechem, in the plot of land which Jacob had brought from the sons of Hamor and the father of Shechem for 100 pieces of money, and it became the inheritance of the sons of Joseph. And Eleazar, the son of Aaron, died, and they buried him at Gilgal of Phinehas, his son, which had given to him in the hill country of Ephraim.
Okay, what are the pearls that we can pull out from here?
Well, we can see that the carrying the bones of Joseph again is evidence of an oral tradition, because Joseph said, take my bones out of Egypt, because Yah will surely come to you.
He didn't write a memo to him?
No.
Chisel it into some stone, make a hieroglyphic, make a little hieroglyphic.
I mean, this is a request that Joseph must have made over 300-400 years ago.
Yeah.
And they remember it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now think about it. You think any of us in this culture will be able to fulfill a promise that was made or a request made by somebody 400 years ago?
Well, that was his grandson. What's his name? The one they buried. That's his grandson.
No, Joshua is not his grandson.
No, the other one.
Which other one?
Yeah,
No.
yeah, Joshua.
No, Joshua.
He's Ephraim. He's Ephraim.
That's
his
not,
grandson.
No.
That is his grandson. No matter how
When
you
you're
look
saying
at
that, in other words,
yeah,
no. You're saying this. Joshua had a father, and his father, the father of his father, was Joseph.
Yes.
You're talking about 400 or 500
That's what
years.
I'm saying. It's still the same thing. That's his bloodline.
Well, Josh,
Yes.
he used the word grandson, but he means like great grandson. That's Let's not get caught up on semantics.
Right.
He's saying that it was that Joshua was Joseph's descendant, and he absolutely was, 100%.
Was the son of David.
No, we
Right.
call him that.
Right.
But it's 1,000 years difference though.
Right.
So let's try and,
I would-
like you said, not get
I
hung
would
up
say
on
that,
semantics.
I would say
I
that
get the point.
the emphasis was going on as far as mental and remembering and old tradition is an attack of Hasatan that we allow on ourselves is the drug culture that's going on amongst our people. Like literally opioids, mollies, like to warp the mind. So you cannot remember. Like literally, I'm listening.
That is number one thing that whenever I dealt with people heavy in marijuana, they have no memory.
Oh, they going stronger now. Like my kid, I was like, you're not listening to that.
Mm-hmm.
I like first, like I was listening to rap and they would at least kind of tell you why drugs are going. Now it's all about being on drugs.
Yeah.
Like the whole
I
story
was
is about
just
being
saying
on drugs.
They got a phrase now called TWOD. It means till we overdose.
Right.
I was talking to some youngsters. I was like, that's got to be one of the dumbest things that I've heard.
But you see why judgment, like the
Isn't
judgment.
that Hassan or
Mhm.
Satan?
Yes.
What if Yahweh is constantly emphasizing all the way through this book? Remember your history.
Right.
What's going to be one of the main tactics? of
To
Satan?
destroy your mind of remembrance.
Keep you from remembering.
Yeah.
Well, it tells you that in, what is it, Romans 11, 1 or 8, 11, somewhere along there. You know what I'm trying to say, right? Rebated mind.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Reprobate
You know what
mind,
else is
right?
cool? You know what else is a beautiful thing though? That we're still continuing the same oral tradition to this day. Even though
Hallelujah.
we have Bibles, but we still following the same words that Moshe said all in thousands of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just the work of the Messiah and the work of the Holy Spirit to keep us all on that same stream or that same frequency, you know.
Because that's the remnant. That's how he maintains that remnant.
Yeah, that's a big deal. Bro.
Who's going to do the presentation today besides